Welcome back to Coaching for Impact. It's always been a pleasure, and it's an honor again to have you here. And for those of us who've been following us on social media, for those who've been sending questions and queries, we're always happy to be able, and we do look forward to having you in our live audience recording sometimes this year. I'd like to introduce, my name is Newton, by the way. I think we've been talking for so long, sometimes I forget to introduce myself. And my co-host...
Nadine Yocheng, right here. Thank you for having you on board.
Nadine, I was just thinking about how sometimes, we are struggling because our battery is now low and you're looking for a charger. Sometimes you forgot completely the whole night to be able to charge your battery. And then you realize it's at 5% and it's at 2%. And it just got me thinking, sometimes we ourselves are at that level where our motivation is just at 1%. And without realizing it, we are not really able to move. What do you feel is the biggest risk of lack of motivation?
The biggest risk of lack of motivation is apathy, where now Newton is completely the other side, where we just don't care now about things. Because you have basically given up on yourself, you've given up on your dreams, you've given up on your goals. There is nothing now you are chasing. So basically means you are just living in the shadows as the days come by. And I think for me that would be the biggest danger of lack of motivation.
That you're taking things as they come.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care anyway.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that, because again, a couple of earlier discussions we had with you, we've seen people struggle and they don't realize that they've reached a stage in their life where their motivation is really at zero.
At zero, that's true.
And as a result of that, they don't really have the energy, the enthusiasm. They're not pushing themselves at work or in their relationships. How does somebody know that your motivation has dipped, or as we say, torpedoed?
First of all, struggling to wake up. I mean, for me, that is the first one. I was watching a video about the American Marines, those who train to become the Navy SEALs. And it's strange, Newton, that the person said the first sign that this person shall not make it through the training to become a Navy SEAL is the response to alarm. So the guy was saying that by itself tells them this one will not make it. So the argument is that, Newton, if I'm struggling to wake up, it means I'm not passionate about anything I'm going to do in the day. And I think for me, that would be the first place, Newton, I would look at. Am I motivated to wake up and face the day? Or am I the one who sets an alarm, it goes off, I touch and put it off, so it has to go on like...
And then you snooze and you snooze and you snooze. It's interesting because I think for me, and maybe because I talk a lot from a work perspective, I feel like the one time that you can feel somebody is unmotivated, to use a particular word, is when they don't really prepare. If you're going into a meeting, you sort of just walk in like, come what may, I will just answer whatever I'm asked, And it's interesting because both at personal levels and at work, when we don't have motivation, we pay a high price. What do you think is a high price that people pay in their personal lives for really lacking motivation?
Is living for nothing. I think it can, Newton, there is nothing else you can put there. Like, basically you're living for nothing. Because the reality is, Newton, when you talk about purpose, it basically means that there is something you exist to accomplish. There is something that I'm chasing to accomplish. There is something that keeps me motivated because I'm looking up to something that must be accomplished. That one day I can sit down and say, wow, this is done. So that means, Newton, that if you're not motivated to wake up to do that, basically you're not living for anything. You are going through life. How do I now put it? I'm trying to look for the right word. You're basically just like a random atom being hit from left to right, any wind that comes, you're moving. You don't have specific thing you can point to. But now, Newton, there's also the other side, because I've seen it. There are people who basically must be pushed so they can do anything.
They're like wheelbarrows, I guess.
Yes, so basically you must push them to go do. What will happen if there is no one to push? My thought is there is a danger there. Number two, there are people who are people pleasers. And this one Newton has kept coming up again and again. I'm actually doing coaching on someone who's struggling in the same area, where now everyone has brought their work and poured to them.
Because they can't say no.
They can't say no. So these are the dangers, Newton. So maybe if you can talk a little bit about that.
So let me pick first from the work perspective, and I agree with you that when you don't have motivation, you're really purposeless, and it's dangerous because, as I said, life moves fast, and we're talking about how the year is going so fast. So before you know it, time really goes, and the last thing that you want is to really get stuck. And coming back to what you're saying, and people who are struggling because we call them people pleasers. I think also motivation goes both ways, right? I think you need to be motivated to be very focused in terms of what you want to be able to achieve. You need to be crystal clear that these are the things that I really need to. And sometimes we challenge you as part of our audience. And I know when we started the year, we said, have your vision, write it down, have your goals, break them down to micro goals. The truth is, all these things, you can only do it if you're motivated. And so if you don't have them, then the truth of the matter is that you need to ask yourself, am I really, really motivated? And if you're finding yourself at work with what you're saying, where you sort of take in so much more, then I feel like the motivation here is just being able to stand and say, I can do this, I can't be able to do this. And have the courage to tell somebody that I cannot be able to do this. The highest price of lack of motivation, I think, as you said, is that your life just goes, right? It really goes. What story comes to mind for you of somebody that really didn't have motivation and the story was sad, or it ended sadly?
Newton, I'll not forget, a couple of months ago, we were in the service. Now, there are times I was not doing much in the service. I was, I think, directing the service. So I feel an urge to go to my office because on Sundays it's normally open. So I go to my office, I find this lady crying. Oh, so I asked, what's wrong? What's going on? She first of all didn't want to speak. Then after a while, she says, okay, it is my trouble at work. It's my trouble. So I asked, what's the trouble? Then she tells me that the one I was, like the same issue I was talking about, that the boss, every time the work, he has not done his work, he pushes it to her. But then when it comes to reporting, he's expecting she has also done her work already. And now there was a friction there. So we had to have a session. I remember I gave her some exercises just to learn and say no. I mean, I was telling her, no is one of the best words ever discovered because number one, it forces the other party to try and inquire more why you're saying no. But number two, it also safeguards you in light of what you can pick on board. I think that is what comes to my mind, Newton. Today, even as we do this podcast, and I believe we are coming to the end of it, that indeed, as we talk about these things, it is important for us to realize that it starts with us. There is something you can do basically about it. So you don't say that there's nothing I can do about it. There's something you can do. It's easy goals. And also, Newton, maybe as I end, most people don't learn to appreciate themselves. So my parting shot is learn to appreciate yourself. Learn to put worth on yourself. Learn to reward yourself for the things you achieve in life. That will be
and I think it's extremely important to stay motivated. For me, even as we come to a close on today's session, it's just to remind you that the people that have been able to make through in life, it doesn't mean they don't go through difficult times, but their motivation is like that fuel that keeps reminding them that stay on your purpose, stay on your focus, stay on your why, no matter what you go through. So it's really our challenge to you that please check on your battery for motivation. If it is low, then recharge it as a matter of urgency. And not only will you be helping yourself, you'll also be making sure that you turn out to be much more better in terms of what you're focusing on. So we wish you the very best, and thank you so much as always for joining us, and we hope that you will be truly, truly motivated. Thank you.
Thank you.